Hello everybody! So .NET 10 is released and it's an LTS version. But boy, what a pain in the ass it is. None of my unit tests are working anymore. This is Stef from Samayas and welcome to my channel. So I thought that upgrading to .NET 10 would be a walk in a park. Boy, was I wrong. First, you need a newer Visual Studio, just to build those projects. Well, technically, of course, you could still use VS Code or Notepad and just build command line. The initial conversion seemed quite easy. That is, until I run my unit tests command line, or run those in Azure DevOps. Technically, none of my unit tests fail, but it's just a process around that isn't working anymore. So, let's dig in and find out. So I've opened up my tools Project Nugget Updater, which is very basic. It has a command line Project Nugget Updater tool and it has a test project. And the first step I'm going to do is I'm going to modify my target framework from .NET 9 to .NET 10. Very simple. And the same thing for the test project. And now I'm going to rebuild to make sure that everything works. And the build succeeded. Next, I'm going to update all my Nugget packages in here. I select all. The last one is in my command line. And the other three are part of the test project. So I select all and I update, I click apply, I click I accept, and my packages are updated. And now let's rebuild to see that everything is still working. And here again, no problem whatsoever. So now of course my project has loads of tests. When using VSTest. Let's rerun all those tests and let's see that everything is still working. As you can see, everything is working perfectly, so the upgrade went fine, right? Well, when you build a tool, of course, after having used Visual Studio, you want to automate things and have a built-in release pipeline. And in there, the first thing we do, of course, is a .NET restore. And that's working fine. The next thing we do is a .NET build. And that's working fine. And then as a cherry on top, of course, we run a .NET test. Oops! And so even though everything seemed fine when using Visual Studio, suddenly .NET Test is not working at all. And so as the message states, testing with VS Test is no longer supported by Microsoft.Testing.Platform on .NET 10 SDK or later. If you use .NET Test, you should opt in to the new .NET Test experience. And then we have a URL. When surfing to this site, we have a whole article detailing now how to use .NET Test in VS Test mode. So as the article describes it, .NET Test for a very long time was VS Test only, and as of version 10, now it'll be accessible to other test platforms. In essence, that's a good thing. However, we still need to tweak things in order to have VS Test and .NET Test run again on our system and or our projects. Now if you first read, it's actually quite simple, right? From the user's perspective, this support is enabled by setting Testing Platform .NET Test support. Right? So, by default it's false. The only thing I need to do is set it to true. Let's give it a run. And after running it, again, it still simply fails. Bummer. Now a little bit more down, it's talking about mixing VS Test and Microsoft.Testing.Platform. So, which is my project actually using? And here again, it gets quite tricky. Technically, if you would only include those two, the MS-Test test adapter and the MS-Test test framework, then you'd be using VS Test. And those are used as your test class or your test methods. However, the moment your project also includes the enable MS test runner, automatically you're also using Microsoft.Testing.Platform. And so in my scenario, if I go back to my documentation, I'm in a scenario where I'm mixing VS Test and Microsoft.Testing.Platform. Now the final block states that in order to have MS Testing.Platform MTP mode to work with .NET Test, is that I should create a global.json. And now let's give that a shot. And so now I've created a global.json, which I've added in the root folder of my solution. So that's automatically checked in Git or any other repo. And in there, I assigned my test and my test runner. So let's run again. Let's retry my .NET test. Now you can see a new form of test runner being run, a little bit different display, and it seems to be working. And my .NET test is working. So, Adding an extra global JSON is a quick way to fix things. However, there are already so many settings that are set as a default. Having set this as a default would have been a good or nice thing to do. Now, whether or not NUnit or XUnit or MS-Test is the dominating force, I don't know, but I do know that this will cause havoc on a lot of existing projects. I'll do a separate video about how you need to modify your Azure DevOps pipeline for this to work. If you guys enjoy this content, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel and hit the bell sign. Or leave a comment down below.